about
Tell
that
him, and
again.
as long as nobody comes to the door, Blitzen won't go crazy and start barking.
Yeah, that's all we can hope that we can hope that doesn't happen, you know. Um,
Yeah.
okay, so to start this off, I'm just gonna introduce myself and then your background kind of. So my name is
Okay.
Dominic Thompson. I'm a junior finance and accounting double major at Clemson University. Currently, I'm interested in doing investment banking or wealth management route. So that kind of segues to why I chose Jim Greenho to interview today. Jim has a lengthy experience as a in the private wealth management team at Morgan Stanley, working closely with high net worth clients, where there's a lot of people like you could be a bad player in this industry where you can make unethical decisions, and it's very important to have a culture of transparency within your team and in your own ideals. So, thought you were a great person to interview for this. So, if you want to start off and kind of
Oh,
say a little bit about your background too.
sure. Um, Other than being Dom's tennis coach many moons ago, I've been in the industry for 35 years, 10 years with Merrill, and 25 years of City Family Office, which was acquired by Morgan Stanley some time ago. So really had two different business cards, but the same chair for the last quarter century.
Awesome, awesome. So to go with our our interview question, so what or who has had the most influence in shaping your ethical outlook and why?
I'm not sure I can point to a person because when you start off in this business, back when we started, there was no internet. So you basically had a phone book and a desk, or any college director you'd find you cold called till you were blue in the face about 70 hours a week. So as far as being ethical, I think there wasn't really one person, but there were a lot of people that you looked around in the business. And I think you said it about 2 minutes ago. There were some highly ethical folks and some highly occasionally unethical folks. So, I tended to migrate towards, the prior, right? You can tell the guys that had good books of business, clients that really liked them. And then, you know, commissions are basically gone nowadays, but back 3.5 decades ago, it was churn them and burn them for a lot of guys. So I think if you were interviewing me 30 years ago, I could have talked to you for 4 hours. Um, Hopefully this helps your question. But nowadays, with compliance and the internet and Big Brother watching, they have eliminated probably 95% of the ethical problems because you really just can't,
Right,
right?
right.
Certainly shouldn't, but you also can't. I think there's still a way around. If somebody really wanted to do something unethical, they could give, bad advice or do something like that. But that serves really no purpose.
That's good. I mean, it's obviously nice with the one good thing about technology, it does mitigate a lot of those issues of the past. Um, okay, so where have you seen the greatest ethical failures and how might they have been prevented?
So outside of 30 years ago, with 2 days left in the month and some of the darker campers in the office, flipping and selling mutual funds, which is completely inappropriate. Um, if we get past that, I'd say I saw two really good producers, big producers in the office, people that people kind of look up to, get walked out for inside information. So
Yeah,
I wouldn't say that's common, but over 3.5 decades, one of the guys, really good guy, his dad was worked for publicly traded companies, and they don't walk you out for one foul. They walk you out for at least two, maybe
right.
three, right? Um, and then another guy about 10 years later was probably the best stock picker in the office back when that really mattered. And one day they walked him out. And the reason I knew that is, one, I was friendly with him. Everybody liked him a great deal, but I ended up inheriting one of his biggest accounts, and I sort of felt bad. I mean, I had to do my job and say, I'm there to help you. I'm not going to prospect you. But I've seen that happen 2 or 3 times, which maybe in
Yeah,
30 years isn't terrible. I mean, obviously Martha Stewart, right?
right.
She got in trouble. But I think your interview questions were coming towards people in the industry, not on the other side.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Because I mean, um, with something like picking like insider trading and stuff, obviously it's maybe profitable in the moment, but it affects the obviously the outlook of people's lives. So it's extremely it's good to talk about this because it's just it's really easy. I feel like maybe not nowadays, but it seems like in the past to make kind of unethical decisions in order to get a quick gain or to try to meet a deadline or something like that. So, okay. Can you describe a significant ethical dilemma you have faced and how you navigated it?
So I appreciated you sending those questions in,
Yeah, I
and
want to give
I
you a little
thought,
prep time.
yeah, which was fine. Um, Honestly, I haven't really had one, and I know that sounds odd, but let me rephrase the question. One of the things that's really mandatory is in our business now, and I think this will help your research is, certain clients are coded as discretionary and not discretionary, right? So I'll create an ethical dilemma for you that I'll explain at the end. But when things are discretionary, if I'm managing your account or your dad's account, I can call you. I don't have to call you guys. I can just make the trade, right? Doesn't mean I'm
Right.
not going to tell but legally I don't have to do that. Not everybody signed that paperwork, and there have been actually this is an ethical dilemma. I'm going to give you one now because now I just thought of one.
Perfect.
One of my best clients travels all over the world, and I'm probably tighter with him than any other client. We're totally in sync. We've made a lot of money together, and sometimes he's not reachable because he's in China or some other crazy country, and you're not supposed to take orders by email or text, and I'm getting all these orders. So there's been numerous times I've had to go down the hallway, go to the compliance officer saying, look, this guy left me with instructions. I have his email. He changed the order by 5 cents, on an email. Are you good with that? And sometimes you get a no. Sometimes you
Right.
get a yes. So, everybody hates the compliance officer because they just annoy people and it's a
Yeah.
terrible job. But, in this industry, you need to make friends with that person because they're the ones that can save your job if something happens, even if it wasn't malicious, right? Client calls up and says, I never authorized that trade. You're like, well, yes, you did. I talked to you. He goes, well, I sent you an email. That doesn't count. I mean, those things can all happen to people in this business. So I think the ethical dilemmas are becoming less and less because the rules are so well written and so well kept, right?
Right.
But again, if you were interviewing me 10 years ago or 10 guys in my office 15 or 20 years ago, some of those weren't even issues. You just sort of took care of the clients, right? Now you cannot even not dot an I or cross a T. Like clients are now getting angry because they're calling you and telling you to do something. And if they're wiring funds now, they need to call twice. They're like, I already talked to you. Right? Well, you have to get a call from us and from the back office because there's wire frauds going on. So if you explain it to them like that, they don't get quite as angry anymore. So I guess when I thought I didn't have an answer to that question, I really did because it comes up when people travel. So if I'm a client now, I want to leave very specific instructions. If I do not have a discretionary account with my financial advisor to act in a certain manner or at a certain price, because if your phone doesn't work, you're out, right?
Right.
That trade doesn't go. So I think compliance has forced the industry into some moral dilemmas every now and again, like I've just explained to you.
Yeah.
So they've they haven't perfected it yet, but they'll probably figure out a way for the guy that goes on vacation that can get a one-time exception to use email for an order, if he uses a code word or something,
Yeah.
right? As long as he's not being captured by, a foreign army or something. So it's a
Yeah.
long way, but I think you get my drift.
No, I completely get it. Just trying to balance like being in the like your client's interest and acting in that interest while also having to use all these new compliance rules in the industry. It's definitely like a scale. Like it's hard to weight it each way without either being unethical in your decision making or upsetting the client. So it's definitely a fine line, which is pretty interesting that it's changed so much because I
It's
mean,
one of the reasons that nobody or very few people want to be a trustee anymore because you
mhm,
you get paid for it unless you're a lawyer, right, or an accountant. And, it's a legal risk to me to be, your trustee if you're not ready to, manage an inheritance type of thing, right?
Right.
Because you could sue me, someone else could sue me. That's why people don't want to do it anymore. There's been books written on that subject. So it's a great job that we're in, but your job's on the line every minute if you are not following the rules to a T.
Right. Which is, I
Probably
mean,
part of
wait, sorry, you cut out a little bit there. Can you repeat?
I say, which is probably part of your research project here. I
Right.
think as your people are reading this or presenting it, they're going to slowly realize that yes, this is a great job, but you better have your hat on straight.
Right. Exactly. That's why I was like, this Jim's a great guy to interview for this because I can definitely tell like there is definitely circumstances where you could be unethical, but obviously you decide not to, which is great.
There's
Okay, this
times
is
when you know the right thing to do for the client and it drives you nuts.
right.
Um, I'll give you one more story
Okay.
if you have time. But best friend from high school. Sadly, he's no longer with us. He lost his way, and
I'm
he's
sorry
he's
about
up
that.
in heaven. But he named me trustee without telling me, which you can't do, and we're
Yeah,
not
I was gonna
allowed to be
say,
trustee where we're sitting from work. So it fell to his ex-wife's sister-in-law that because of the divorce decree couldn't do it, and then it fell to his father, and but he never changed the documents right. So his son had to do it, but he was 17. They had to wait a year. The assets were frozen for 18 months until he turned 18, and I wasn't even allowed. At the time, the money was in a non-interest bearing checking account, and I
okay.
couldn't move it to a money market legally. Both the firm banned it and the law firm banned it. And so they lost out on interest on like $2 million for a year and a half. How
That's
about that one?
awful.
Now
Yeah,
that's not a client to get your house in order, but that was a moral dilemma for me. I wasn't going to do anything about it, but it really drove me nuts.
yeah, because you
So
just want
that's
to
kind
help the
of a
kid
dilemma
out.
for that's a dilemma for the law, is what I would say.
Right. That's a really good example.
Yeah. So I hear that story with a lot of clients and people in the business because people should hear that and get their house in order.
Right. Yeah, make sure you have all your accounts aligned just in case something unexpected happens. Yeah.
Yep, you
Uh,
got it.
this is one of my favorite questions, I believe. What do you see as the greatest professional ethics crisis of today, and how can emerging professionals prepare to deal with it?
Greatest, I mean, sort of, I'll say two answers. One is just do the right thing. I know that sounds like a cop out, but that's really our job, right? Take care of
Right.
people, do the right thing, treat them like you treat your family, and that will grow your business faster than you could imagine, right? Because at some point, everybody needs someone to help them with their finances, either because of busyness, incompetence, age, health, all that stuff. So doing right by people is a quicker way to grow your business than trying to, cut corners or get an edge or impress somebody's socks off just to get more business. So
Right.
I would say that's the most important thing. But part two of that, you know, I wouldn't put this in a book, but go ahead and try because you're going to get caught, right?
Right.
We used to be able to, if I was helping you guys out and you wanted me to cut a check and bring it to you to your office or your home, that was not a big deal 20 years ago. No way, buddy. You're not touching anybody's money. You're not touching a check. All these things are illegal. The back office is calling me 3 weeks ago when I had to sell a short-term tax-free bond to fund a capital call to a private equity firm. The guy was putting money in. They want to know
Yeah.
why. Why would I sell a bond? Well, hey, maybe the client needed cash, right?
Right.
But
Liquidity.
you now have to take notes in the file. So on our screen now, I have a button called interactions that if I talk to a client and not like, hey, what time are we playing golf? But if the conversation was more serious or whatever, you better take notes, right?
Right.
You better document, we can't record our clients' phone calls. Somebody probably is somewhere. Um, but I think wrapping that question up, when I said go ahead and try, I'm not asking someone to go ahead and try and be unethical, but good luck. It's
Right.
it's probably not. It's probably going to come back and bite you. So why bother, right?
Yeah, I think that's honestly a good for everyone's peace of mind that if you're managing these sums of money, that obviously it is good to have all these different regulations in place so that unethical
Well,
things don't happen.
That's at a big firm with big compliance. If you're at Madoff's shop, right? Bernie Madoff's office, who
Yeah.
made off everybody's money, there was no compliance, right?
Or like
So,
FTX had zero compliance too. Like some like
right.
examples like that. Yeah.
So I think if you're the client, you got to think about is a big bracket firm too impersonal? Well, it's the people you're dealing with at the firm, right? That the compliance is there for a reason. So the big firms are very client friendly, right? Not that they don't stick up for their advisors, but I'll tell you, if there's an argument, the client wins nine
The
out of 10
client
times.
wins. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. I've heard
yeah.
that.
Once in a while, you get a bad seat on the other side. I've also seen the firms turn away business if it looks like that person was unethical. So some firms are doing ethical background checks on potential clients. They have a
That's
thing
really
called
interesting.
they have a thing called KYC, which works both ways. That stands for Know Your Client. So I've got to fill out a KYC on your family, like how I know you, how I met you. Is your money coming from Colombia or Miami
Yeah.
or some other jokingly
Yeah.
area, but it's a real thing. They're making you check in profiles. You can't do business in certain countries, so it's that's not really ethics, but it's a form of it, right?
Right. No, for sure. Well, that's about all I have. Well, thank you so much, Jim, for meeting with me. I know you're a busy guy, so I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to do this little interview. So thank you.
All right, listen, anything for a former captain. You guys can
Yeah,
always cut the line.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Well, have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much,
All
Jim.
right, see you down. Cheers.